All right, we're live. It's Sunday. It's a nice day out today. I'm surprised. I am used to seeing rain all day, every day. So a nice sunny change. Gonna do an episode of the Hot Box for y'all here. Got myself, got some weed, got Gooey Rabinski on the line. What's up, Gooey?
Wait,
I'm stalling. This is what we in the biz call stalling as I load
I can help you stall. There's a lot of ways we can do that.
So how's things going over there?
Things are good. I'm enjoying Central Texas. Excellent weather.
Nice.
We're just a couple weeks from where there's not a single day that's not at least in the low to mid 70s, and that's excellent cycling weather. I'm really looking forward to getting back into cycling pretty hardcore, because we talk about topics like the holistic nature of our health a lot, and it's based on equilibrium, endocannabinoid system.
That's true. You can't just eat decent food and then sit around all day. You got to actually go and move around and get some sunlight.
And I think there's really kind of a misperception among a lot of people who like cannabis, whether they're hardcore patients with a serious disease or just kind of, adult use people, who realize that if they're reducing anxiety, they're preventing disease. But they really don't think about the medicinal value of it.
Go smoke a joint and go ride your bike. It would be the best day of your life ever.
That's true.
As
a lot of people call it performance enhancement, especially sativas.
That's right. Cheating.
So
cheating at life. All right, I found the intro, so we're gonna start the show. And you can watch live, hotboxpodcast.com/live. There's an IRC chat room in there on Freenode in the room, Hotbox Podcast. So if you want to hang out, if not, we'll see you on the other side.
On the seventh day, Shiva created by the heathen devil weed marijuana.
The terrors of tripping on pump.
Be there! Scour the spaceways! Explore vast alien worlds! This tin right here contains the whole rigmarole.
I used to smoke about an ounce of hash every day.
Good.
And it made me go a little bonkers.
Maybe if I occupy his mind with more duties, I can control his space.
Hi, big fat doobies. Hi.
Hi, what's up, everybody? Today's Sunday, February 7th, 2016, episode 172 of the Hot Box. My name's Matt. That guy right there, you can't see, but you'll hear him. He's on Skype. His name is Gooey Rabinski. What's up, Gooey?
Hey, man.
Good to have you back. Got a book I just want to mention. I saw something on Twitter, and it reminded me. I read it so long ago, but people, if you haven't read it, this guy wrote a book about medical cannabis and the arguments about it. Very educational stuff. Where can they find that?
Well, it's on Amazon.
Nice.
It's called Understanding Medical Marijuana, and it's very purposefully short. It's like 60-something pages. And really, people like you and I and a lot of your listeners already understand a lot of what's in the book. And, it'll definitely fill in the gaps. When I was researching it, it filled in. I learned a lot.
And like we've mentioned before, it's for us to give to our parents or grandparents or the people in our lives that may not be on the same boat that we're on here as far as cannabis and its legality.
Right, but they're going to walk into the voting booth, and you just think in 2016 we're going to have like 10 states considering adult use cannabis legalization. This is a big deal. Most, if not all of those, will be ballot initiatives with people going to the polls. And we've got tons and tons of metrics and statistics showing that it is middle-aged and seniors who vote the most, the largest percentage of those groups.
Well, that's right.
And unfortunately, those are the groups who most oppose legalization, even medical legalization.
Now, why would that be? That's so weird. You could almost say that those that have been around the planet and all of the lies the government has been telling them the longest, have the most off perception of it. But it's important because their vote counts just like yours and mine and everyone else, unless you're a felon. And it's important that we go and vote and be armed with the truth and not some fabricated BS that we were taught to listen to. So
exactly. So
read that book and have your parents read it, and anyone you know that isn't like in agreement with this knowledge here, like let them read it and make that. You can't argue with people like this and change their mind. You have to let them come to that conclusion. So all we can do is provide the info, let them make a decision based on the logic and rationale that's in there. And if they come to the wrong decision, then okay, then you know what kind of person you're dealing with, and you can move on accordingly
to a more suitable candidate.
exactly, right? Because you can't save them all. You definitely can't save them all.
Lead a horse to water. You know, I'm not really trying to make this a shameless plug for the book, but you know, it's $5, and both the length and the price, and the fact that it's an ebook, and you know, I can update it with a certain frequency. It's all just so you can do exactly what we just said. Share it with your grandparents, share it with your parents, share it with your neighbors, share it with people in the church choir, down at the synagogue, down at the Rotary Club. I don't care, but there's a lot of people.
Share it with the people at your next ISIS meeting. I mean, get the word out, you know?
Hey, they're burning fields of it. I hate these bastards.
Get the word out. You know where the word's been out? I saw this article in the New York Times about the sales so far. 2015 legal marijuana sales, $5.4 billion. Not too bad for a bunch of broke potheads.
Now, well, and they're talking. That's true, and they're talking about 4 states, and they don't even have a dispensary network or retail sales in DC. So that number's derived from just 4 states, correct?
Yep.
Now just think of those. Let's say we got 10 states coming up for adult use in 2016. Let's just say a third of those make it, and I think it'll be more than that, but maybe that's wishful thinking. Let's just say 3 of those make it. That almost doubles the number of states. And the whole thing is, California is one of those states, and it is the most populous state in the nation with 40 million inhabitants, and that is a big deal.
Let me extrapolate out from there. 4 states with, I mean, I guess you could do the math and see about how much population density they have, and then kind of figure out, once all 50 states legalize it, you're basically borderline getting us out of national deficit is what the weed can do for you.
And that's without the hemp industry and
that's like that's
uses,
one industry based around all of us smoking it. Like, you can make all sorts of shit out of it and have every other kind of industry you want, or you're allowed to have.
Exactly.
But so, again, who's running all of those industries?
These are impressive numbers. I think maybe some of these laws and initiatives are getting some traction, because even conservative, we got to realize the whole world's not black or white, liberal, conservative, progressive, and Republican, but there are a lot of moderates out there. They might be financially conservative, but yet believe in gay marriage or medical pot. There's just a lot of these moderates out there, and that's really they're seeing these numbers. They're looking at these tax dollars and saying, "Oh my God, that's obviously helping the economy." That we put a new roof on the school, and taxes from marijuana paid for that.
Exactly. And that's what you get communities all over the place that are like, hey, this can help rejuvenate our town here.
Exactly. So I very impressive numbers, considering it's only 4 states right now. If we get if we double that in 2016, and obviously those states don't come online overnight, but what is really impressive is that California, not only with those 40 million inhabitants, many of whom are very friendly to the kind herb, but California, from what I've read, also has an infrastructure of more than 4,000 dispensaries. And many of those are going to become, serving medicinal and recreational adult use. But then there's all these new adult use ones that are going to come online. I mean, we're just going to find such an amazing network of dispensaries and retail outlets in the state of California. I think we're going to see. They're
saying non-medicinal adult use accounted for 998 million of the total sales, which is up from 351 million in 2014. And these estimates are based partly on state tax receipts and data on medical and rec sales. So then they take it out to 2020, right? The year 2020, if we make it that far, right? The legal market sales forecast to be about $21.8 billion. So, I mean, not much, but a little bit. $21 billion. That's cool.
I'd say it's actually a conservative estimate. You know,
Yeah,
I
well,
think,
low ball, right? Crunching
I
some
mean,
numbers, just
that's
low
good
balling it out.
because we don't want to embarrass ourselves with the conservatives 5 years from now saying, "Hey,
That's right.
you know, you didn't make your numbers." It's like,
Sorry, guys, we only broke 15 billion. Our bad.
have to manage expectations.
Yeah, exactly. We're only gonna make 5 million, you guys.
That's right. Well, you know, but also Oregon only came online with recreational sales October 1st of 2015. This was very recent.
That's true, and in a completely different fashion than what happened in Washington. So in Oregon, if you don't know, you're seeing the dispensaries basically having reign to sell rec stuff, but only certain things, right? Only weed and only a certain amount of it, and their medical patients can continue getting service as they normally would. But you can come there from wherever, right? As long as you're over 21 and go to a dispensary and just buy some weed, which is cool.
Right.
The first few months they were doing a tax break, and then there was a certain tax increase, and then eventually they were saying it would get handed over to the Oregon alcohol board, and then the tax would go back down to like 17% or something. And what I found interesting too about Oregon, we can start talking about that article here. The way they do their tax structure is they basically leave it up to the people there. Like, do you want to split the tax, or do you want to pass the tax on to your end customer, or do you absorb that cost? See, and in Washington, when it started out, it was a tax at each tier, and then that eventually got changed all to the end, like the shops themselves getting a certain amount of tax. But I thought it was interesting that Oregon was like, you can pay it, or you can have your customers pay it. We don't give a shit as long as we get paid.
Yeah, you know, I like that. I think it's kind of a laissez-faire attitude.
Yeah, let the people figure it out, right? Like, as long as you're getting it in the end, who gives a shit?
You know, it allows more price competition. It allows somebody that says, you know, we're going to be the low price leader and we're going to make money on volume.
It lets the market sort itself out, which in a capitalist society, that's what you would expect. And that's what you would strive for, right? Let the market, the people basically figure it out themselves that way.
Well, it's ironic that, you know, the Republicans will say that they're, you know, anti-big government, and yet, you know, it's the conservatives and the Republicans, the anti-cannabis culture people who are slapping some ridiculous restrictions on cannabis legalization, you know, the regulation of dispensary networks or whatever. And in fact, look at all the, you know, not to change the subject too much here, but look at all these communities throughout Washington. You're right there at home base, dude. Oregon, Colorado, and California that are banning all sales. You know, they can't ban possession and consumption because that's legal under state law. They can't go against state law. But they're just saying, well, you know, you can't set up a shop here, and they're hurting their economies and they're hurting their patients. Some of these counties are very large, and these patients, it's not like if they're so sick they can't work and they're living on, you know, Social Security or something, there's a good chance they don't have a car or a functional car sitting out in the driveway. So it's not as easy as people like you and I just saying, oh, let's go jump in the car and drive to the other county.
Right. But they don't allow you in a weird way. Like, it's like saying Domino's, you're not allowed to have delivery drivers because the food you're serving is clogging arteries and actually killing people. So we're going to make those people physically come to you. No more deliveries. See, like they're imposing weird law. Like, if people don't want deliveries, then let it figure itself out. If a company wants to offer that as a perk or a service to get customers, then they should be able to do that. And that's a good service. Like, there is a lot of people, especially in the medical cannabis community, that don't drive, and to be able to bring that to them would be phenomenal.
Well, think of it. That's why these delivery services are so encouraging. Not because, you know, some, you know, teenagers on the east side of LA or, you know, want to have their weed delivered during their party, but look at how many, for example,
that is pretty cool though.
I know. But look at the epileptics, or look at people with dystonia, severe MS, even moderate MS, and they can't get driver's licenses.
There's a huge population, part of our population that can't drive, for sure.
That's right.
There are a lot of places, believe it or not, that don't have very good public transportation, for sure.
But we talk about safe access and we talk about harm reduction, and if we don't allow those people safe, you know, easy, convenient access, they're not going to get harm reduction because they're going to be getting overpriced gack of an unknown origin, not tested, full of pesticides from some asshole on the black market.
Yeah, exactly. And
Ugh.
hey, if that's what the market wants, then that's what the market will dictate. But I have a higher faith in the market than I do in the government dictating the market. So
I would agree.
but yeah, it's pretty interesting. And I'm definitely looking forward to 2020 to see like how on point this market analyst research is as far as their numbers. We see this a lot in the tech industry when the analysts are forecasting like Apple's numbers or Google's numbers or whatever, and they come out with like this gigantic number, and it's like, yeah, okay. And then Apple comes out and they're like, yeah, here's that gigantic number, and they're like, oh, it's not big enough, rah 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 rah. But in like any reality, like that's, you guys are so rich, like it doesn't even matter at a certain point.
Yeah, they have like 230 billion in cash.
Yeah.
In cash, that that's
Yeah,
separate
like
from Wall Street
spendable,
money.
not even invest, like spendable cash money. I want to buy a spaceship. Boom, there's cash money.
Don't joke about that. Jeff Bezos from Amazon, he's building those spaceships. He's building
I
whatever
know.
he's like a 12-year-old with too many billions of dollars. Maybe I shouldn't say too many. He's doing some cool stuff.
He's doing some way cool stuff. And if at some point that we can buy a spaceship, then right on. That's
There you
awesome.
go.
Did you see Woody Harrelson is applying to open a marijuana dispensary? That's pretty cool. I'm surprised this hasn't happened like earlier. He seemed
No,
like he was a
he's wanting
big proponent
to do
of
that in Hawaii, correct?
Yeah. And
He's kind of a Hawaii type of guy, kind of chill and wanting to. He's probably got some property there.
Oh, I would imagine. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, he's been an activist and like an outspoken one for a really
Sure.
long time. I'm surprised that this is now something that he's doing, or maybe this is just one that's in the news now. I'd be surprised to learn if he didn't own any other dispensaries,
Well, sure. And when you think about investment groups like ArcView, and there's tons of them out there. That's just the first one that comes to mind. They're pretty prominent and kind of trailblazers. But where does their money come from? And it passes through so many hands, whether we want to criticize that system or not. So Woody can, go through an investment guy, and the investment guy goes through this, fund, and they drop some, 40% of their holdings into the, something like ArcView. So the money can really pass. But I'm sure there's tons of, Leonardo DiCaprio and tons of celebrities outside of the stereotypical Snoop Dogg and Willie Nelson and Tommy Chong, the ones we think of.
They're all invested. They're just probably quiet investors or whatever.
I would
but this,
be quiet.
when I read this, it makes me think that like, oh, he's gonna be running it and opening it there, and it's like his dispensary. But I'm sure that's not the case.
Kind of like a Jimmy Buffett thing.
Kind of like
hey,
he'd be there and like
you
you could hang out and like he'd tell you what kind of weed he's got today. It's like, hell yeah, it's Woody
Maybe
Harrelson.
like Cheers, only he's a lot older.
I just bought weed from Woody Harrelson. That's awesome.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, they're taking they have like 60 applicants trying to get in Honolulu County's first medical dispensaries that are going to open. And his company name, Simple Organic Living. I like it.
There you go. Do you know offhand whether they can grow outside in Hawaii?
I should hope so. I hear they get a lot of sunlight there. I've never been personally.
They say the soil, the volcanic ash in the soil, they say it's just some of that in Northern California, some of the best cannabis outdoor growing conditions like ever.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, if not, I would bring some of that volcanic ash indoors and do it that way.
I'm just wondering if I'll have to check into that if the laws allow them to do outdoor cultivation. I certainly would hope so, because my God, it's just such an amazing soil.
Yeah. And this is another interesting case in where this is another state that has had medical cannabis on their books for like 15 years plus, right? But never an actual way for people to get it. It's like, oh, you can have, if you have the tax stamps, you can have the weed. Oh, sorry, we're fresh out of tax stamps.
Well, like Nevada last year, they had been, more than a decade with nothing in place. Yeah. And even California really didn't define things until last fall, and it had been 18, 19 years. So, yeah, sometimes, the law passes and the wheels of bureaucracy are very slow, and there's opponents in government who are like, oh, your law might have passed, but we're going to drag our heels.
Yeah, definitely. If he does get it, he'll be able to open up like a couple of processing centers, 2 production centers, 2 dispensaries. So
I think a lot of people in our culture trust him. They perceive that he's sincere. I know I do.
Yeah.
And so I think that you would get a lot of people who would, a Woody Harrelson branded or his company branded product, if they knew that he was part of it. I think it could really do very well in sales in the legal states.
Huh. Was Hawaii the first
The first
to do medical marijuana?
No, that was California in 2000 or 96 with Proposition 215, the Compassionate Use Act.
Okay, this was saying Hawaii became the first to legalize medical marijuana through the legislative process 16 years ago.
Oh, through the legislative
So that's
process,
different than
California
what, right?
The ballot issue.
Right. That makes sense.
There you go. We learn something new every day.
See?
That's why I like life.
And if you like Woody Harrelson and you like weed, he made a cool documentary called Grass, I think. Yeah, Grass. He didn't make it. He narrated it. But yeah, he's in it, and it's pretty cool. So check that out.
Yeah, I think I've got that on DVD and, in a box somewhere.
So you know who's not for medical marijuana? The Mormon Church is coming out in Utah saying that how Utah was going to do a bill, right, to let you use some medical cannabis, some edibles and whatnot. So
yeah.
And then in a state like this, like we have separation of church and state in like 48 states, I guess. Like when the church comes out and says something like this, you pretty much give up at that point and start moving to like a more progressive state, or what do you do?
Hey, you read, not to hopelessly plug the book, but you actually read the book.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I
read when it
things.
Talked about the Mormon Church, how way back at the beginning of all this BS before in the 20s, in the teens and 20s, and the Mormon Church has been against cannabis and the culture of cannabis for any reason for a long freaking time, well over a century.
Now, if you approach them like nicely, right, and not trolling or anything, and you were like, I would like 5, no less than 5 logical reasons why you oppose this, like what would the response be? Just
I think for a lot of this
security,
I'm just going to have to kind of say I'm not going to be able to directly address it, because when Luddites and conservative forces like this just stand in the way of progress. Now, hey, you people like you and I, we love technology for the sake of technology, right?
Yeah.
But we're talking about sick people here. And if your dogma and your religion does not allow you to embrace those sick people and help them, regardless of their personal religious beliefs, just because they're not on your team, you're not going to help them, that's bullshit. And it really pisses me off. So this whole thing just gets me, I think, a little tweaked. And I get just really frustrated by this because it's extremely hypocritical. Don't tell me your dogma is to help people and the downtrodden and to be Christ-like, and then you're going to say nope, but no,
except in
no
this
cannabis.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious, because it can't be. It's not like, oh, because it's a religious thing. Like I am honestly, legitimately curious what their reasoning is. Like why. What do they tell themselves that, like, oh, we're doing good here, we're doing God's work? They must just look at it all like drugs and like crack and heroin, and think that when they're keeping weed out, they're keeping like heroin and crack out, right? Like that's the only thing I can think of.
You're absolutely correct. I think you're right on, Matt. That is really where I think it's a perspective born very much out of ignorance. But just last week, Waxy published an interview I did with Becca Williams, who's host of the Marijuana Straight Talk show.
Oh, cool.
And in the interview, we're talking about ignorance, and getting people to vote the right way on laws and such. And she said, in her opinion, it wasn't so much about ignorance, but that it was about stigma and fear that what if this really is dangerous and it's melting my teenager's brain?
That's the whole reason they believe in religion in the first place. That's all Pascal's wager. Like, what if? Well, I don't want to go to hell, so I might as well, right? Like,
it's a fear-based, contentious culture of good and bad, and it's overly simplistic.
But you can't make law that dictates behavior based on that, and that's kind of what they're doing, and that's scary. That's real scary.
Well, you shouldn't be able to morally, ethically, but guess what? They did.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because they have money and they're powerful and all that. So.
Yeah. Can we talk about something?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just joking. But
we were rooting for Utah for like a second and a half there, and then and it's like, oh well, Utah and Idaho.
it's just so frustrating when you can't even have an intelligent dialogue with these people because we can't even agree to have it be science-based.
Yeah,
That's all
if
I'm
we
saying.
can't communicate, like if we can't pick the least denomination to communicate on, right? Like then we can't have this chat and nothing will get done.
That's right. If we can't even be standing in the same room and hear each other, then there is no dialogue.
Yeah.
And all I'm asking for is just, can we have a science-based approach to this? And then we can take the results of that science and we can do credible human trials and research, and we can examine it. And different groups, and liberal, conservative, progressive, etc., different groups will interpret that information differently. They'll have different priorities and different objectives.
But
That's what makes
at the end of the day, like we smoke this stuff every day. If it hurts us, I think we would want to know that. Like we don't smoke it because we're like, oh, this weed's gonna kill us. Like that's why we smoke cigarettes. We smoke weed because it's like good and happy and healthy.
Yeah, and because we don't have a whole lot of credible academic laboratory research, we are forced to really, as a culture, especially when we're trying to educate people,
anecdotal.
To anecdotal stuff,
Yeah.
Okay? And, there's been a lot of people coming out green, quite frankly, in the last couple of years, who are folks in their 60s and 70s, and they're saying, look, I've been smoking a joint a day for 50 years.
Exactly.
And they're perfectly happy, healthy, well-adjusted people.
Weird.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's like the opposite of what we were supposed to be. That is so weird. But
I think some of my best writing is when I have sativas, and being in a prohibitionist state, it's hard for me I can just walk into the local dispensary because there isn't one and request that Jack Hare or that Durban Poison or whatever really gets my wheels turning.
Yeah.
But there's something about a good sativa, get your creativity rolling.
Did you see it? We'll move from one ignorant state to another ignorant issue.
Okay.
Not state, because I know New Jersey's down there. That's where the Bricks is. That's where Redman's from. Like they're down with this. But their police force or whoever issued this, I guess their poison control people, maybe not as well informed as Redman would be. But they're talking about wax, also known as honey oil, shatter, dabs. You've perhaps heard of these. They're saying, and this is like, I shouldn't laugh. This is serious. This is the director of the Drug Information Services at the New Jersey Poison Control. So this is like a guy pretty high up there who has this to say: marijuana wax is not marijuana. There is an extremely bad hallucinatory side effect. Which, I don't want to say hallucinatory, but if you're not used to extracts and you take a dab, like, yeah, it's going to fuck you up pretty good. It's not going to make you hallucinate. I don't know what he's like saying hallucination is, but
it's bullshit. It's the most ridiculous thing. People like you and I would kind of like to, push it to the limit maybe sometimes and do some experimentation. I've never hallucinated. I remember the first really powerful dab I had ever done, and it was in Vancouver in 2004. And they had that Butter up there, Budder, and the Butter King, and he had his own shop. And so we were in his shop as part of a tour. And I remember just like, whoa, very cerebral, just like a shot of adrenaline, amazing. But there was my point is no hallucination. Okay, you can try to hallucinate on this stuff. I think if anything, you're just gonna get, maybe a little dizzy.
I don't even know how you would do that. I think you'd be better off taking the dab and then going into some sort of meditative state where you can just get your brain to hallucinate on its own. I don't know. But the point is what they're saying that it is, and these warnings that they're issuing, it's like it's giving all of that a very bad image, and that is no
right.
good.
And doesn't it just come under the category of more fear mongering?
Yeah, basically.
What about the kids? They're melting their brains. It's very dangerous. Dangerous. There's all these keywords, all these hot button keywords.
But they did have Chris Goldstein, who's writing a cannabis column for Philly.com. He came out in the article and he says that you can't actually overdose or kill yourself, but it can be a little stronger for novice users. So he says you will never see an overdose death from marijuana or hash oil, which I think we can all agree with here.
Chris is a great writer. He's got an excellent Twitter feed too.
Says there's an image problem with wax. That's Justin Albert, Livingston attorney who advocates for the normalization of marijuana in New Jersey. He says it is unregulated now, but as we move towards a legitimate process, you can buy it clean. So I guess they need to just get some regulations there, and then you can buy it clean.
Well, we all want it clean. Don't you? You have some funny categories, dude, with your clear but not the clear.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I'm sure there's some funny stories wrapped around those.
It's clean.
Well, kind of to hit on what we talked about during the previous podcast at this Cannabis Health Summit that they had in late January by Green Flower Media. And there was a doctor from California there, as we talked about in the last one, who said she did not. I remember she's a doctor, okay? She's got patients, and she's a proponent of medical cannabis. But she did not endorse dabbing for patients. And she said, the problem is clear. You're getting 2 to 4 hours of relief. And she goes, it might be very intense relief, but she said, these people need to be able to sleep through the night, not have insomnia, sleep disturbance, all of these other problems that result from that. She said, if they've got to do this every 2 to 4 hours, how do they get their 8 hours of sleep? Now, many others are very big proponents of dabbing, but it just kind of, this whole issue of conservatives demonizing dabbing, we just, again, let's be science-based. This is just an extract, okay? We deal with extracts in life all day long.
All day long. Maybe not necessarily dabbing them, but yeah.
Maybe it's like shampoo or hand cream or something. I mean, we extract stuff from plants. We concentrate it. We whether it's synthetic or organic, we do this stuff all the time. And I love how people are saying that dabbing can be more like a crack cocaine, just you're mainlining this stuff. And that's never been my experience. I think most people, you hit them a little too hard and they're like, well, that's not the way
they
I'm
need
do
to
it
like
anymore.
sit down and get a glass of water. But
yeah,
you're going to
I
be.
think yeah, a lot of people aren't going to want to dab, Unfortunately, that's why there's so many different ways to do this. They got flowers, they can smoke them, they can vape.
And I mean, definitely, like there should be some sort of structure in place to make sure the people producing it are producing it in a safe manner. Because you're dealing with temperatures and pressures and stuff that you need to know what you're doing. Otherwise, things can get ugly. As we've seen articles about that happen.
Exactly. So. And it's complicated chemistry too, That's I was watching
it's not rocket science, but
Aunt Zelda's some of her lectures. She's really great to listen to. She's all over YouTube. And she was saying how she goes, look, I live in Napa Valley, but I don't have a vineyard. If I want wine, I go buy wine that someone else made and sold to me. She said she feels the same way about extracts and concentrates. She's like, look, I want a laboratory, professional lab, professional company. I want all that in place. She goes, so what? And I want to go buy my medicine from them at a reasonable price with an assurance, full laboratory testing that it's clean, that it doesn't have pesticides. And she's very, very picky about the purity of it. But she talks from a very practical perspective that, I mean, I don't want to make BHO in my garage or my basement. I'll be totally honest. I want to go down to a dispensary and buy it and just not get ripped off and not get pesticides.
Yeah, exactly. Is that so much to ask?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can do it with bread and milk. Why the hell can't I do it with cannabis?
Yeah, usually. Sometimes you gotta be careful though. Gotta check that expiration date.
That's what, and we got expiration dates, labeling. It really, it's more than just.
We have the harvest by date, definitely.
Yeah.
When was this weed harvested? 20.
Budweiser has their drink by date. Yeah, you get your smoke by date.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did you see this article about Facebook starting to remove business pages for medical marijuana dispensaries? And it's kind of something you see on social networks, unless it's like Canasauce or I forget the name of the other one, but there's a bunch of like weed focused social networks. But
several
if you're posting
on Instagram,
right, and that's what I was going to mention. Facebook owns Instagram. Instagram is notorious for removing accounts that are weed related, posting weed pictures, and then get a certain size. It seems like, and I don't know if it has something to do with people flagging them or comments or what, but Yeah, every now and again you'll see a account come back and it's like, oh, deleted at however many thousand followers they had or whatever, and then be like, oh, here's the new account, gotta follow this now because Instagram's dicks.
Yeah. Yes, they are. And I think you bring up a good point. Probably a lot of people are not aware that Facebook owns Instagram.
That's true. They bought it for $1 billion, I believe.
That's right. And, it's kind of weird because, I don't know. I mean, I like Facebook in terms of being able to connect with like-minded people and network and get an education and get the word out. So it's, it's all fine in that respect. But just because I like photography and I like being able to communicate without words, it's kind of an interesting challenge, right?
Yeah.
And it's great for branding. These companies, there's a lot of companies I'm very interested in. I don't really want commercials, that's why I watch Netflix and Hulu Plus and shit like that. I just cannot tolerate the commercials. But I think it's a really unique form of branding on Instagram. But yeah, like Dixie Elixir's got a huge following and their Instagram got shut down. And so if now they're doing it over on Facebook too,
yeah,
it really, it's sad when it becomes such a neurotic culture when you're putting, the owners and managers of those businesses are putting so much effort into managing that social media, and it's an emerging and very competitive space, becoming more competitive all the time.
Is that easily solved by just simply being a business that owns their own content? Like, you should definitely be utilizing social networks like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that, but you shouldn't be solely relying on them to be your platform. Like, you need to own your content, because Facebook could go away at any time. Google could go away at any time. Like, any of the places that we're using, like, unless you own it, it's ephemeral. Like, it's not always going to be there. One day you could go to log into Instagram and all your shit will be gone and be like, oh well, good thing I have all my shit in like 18 other places. But it's that thing, like, you need to own your platform, where you need to have your website that is the focus, and then you use the social networks to like get your word out there, but you can't rely on them because they're not yours.
Yeah, I would agree entirely. Whether it's a simple WordPress blog that an activist has going, but just somehow you got to own it because the social network. And they update their terms of service all the time. One little tweak to the TOS, and suddenly, here's 4 million members who we're going to pull the plug because they're breaking the rules.
Or we own all your stuff all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever actually read one of those? No, nobody does. They basically own all of your shit. I don't know if you know that or not. They basically own your shit.
Or it'll be like co-copyright, where you own the shit. So meaning you can do anything you can sell it. You can, charge people to use your photos or your text, or,
sure,
freelance it or whatever. But I forget which one it is, Twitter or something like that. Anyway, they have the right to use it in their advertising. That's what they use.
And like Flickr was doing that.
Yeah. Which, quite frankly, if Flickr,
if you're a business, like, that's a pretty good idea. I mean, I'm going to have all of this stuff for you. I'm going to use some of it if I need it. That's all.
Well, who wouldn't want that? I would, if Flickr used some of my stuff to promote their product or service, I would be like, woohoo, free exposure for me.
Yeah, so cool. Other people are looking at my pictures. All right.
Fuck yeah, that's a win-win. So
yeah. And their whole thing, Facebook's whole thing was that it's what their standards say, prohibiting the sale or purchase of drugs by unauthorized dealers, which isn't, like they say in the Verge article, it's not necessarily what these dispensaries are using it for. They're not selling the weed on Facebook. They're using it to say, hey, here's what we have, here's where we're at, your strains change, things like that. They're relying on Facebook to be able to keep that stuff updated, and it's where everyone is, right? Everybody has a Facebook account. You couldn't do that on Google Plus because like only 18 of us still use it. So you got to be where the people are.
That's right.
But then that's their whole argument, is that once Facebook shuts this sort of stuff down, then all of those patients that have basically been relying on Facebook to be the conduit, of what kind of weed they can get and when, like, it's gone now. And they're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't even have my dispensary's phone number. Like, we're stuck.
Yeah.
So don't rely on Facebook.
Well, I think another lesson is don't rely on a single social media network.
Well, yeah, definitely.
the smart companies are obviously doing Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. That's kind of the core three. Maybe they're doing LinkedIn, or maybe that's just their executives having personal accounts. But and then there's just everything else. So a lot of opportunities, and I think it depends on who you're trying to reach and what age are they. If they're 15 years old, that means a certain set of social media, and if they're 45 years old, that's a different set.
Right. And I think that might be some of where these companies and things are getting in trouble, is that they're on networks like Snapchat, and I mean Instagram, like we all use it, but there is a large set of younger audience that uses it, right? And I feel like some of those people, those kids, get on these weed accounts, and I think somebody's parents maybe sees that in their phone, and then they flag that, and then enough of that happens and Instagram just removes the account.
Yeah.
So if you're a dispensary, you shouldn't even be on Snapchat. Let's just say, if you're in that biz, you shouldn't be on Snapchat, because none of those kids are old enough to buy weed. So I don't know what you're doing there.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, a lot of this is kind of common sense, and not everybody employs that. And I think a lot of business owners, especially with the whole green rush going on,
there's a lot of weed business owners getting swindled really hard by social media managers and whatnot.
Oh, like SEO experts.
Yeah, like a lot of that shit. I see a lot of that, and I'm like, I want to help you, but that's not really my job anymore. So good luck.
There's a lot of sharks in that business.
There's a lot of bullshit in that business of people being like, oh, I can do all this, and then not doing any of it or doing it wrong.
You and I, we have technical backgrounds, but I've even seen those swindlers, those sharks in the landscaping business. I had a friend who worked for a landscaping business, and they were just ripping them off for thousands of dollars and feeding them blowing smoke up their ass so badly. She started describing some of what they were doing, and I started asking some hard questions. She'd go back to work. We'd talk again in a week or so, and they were just blatantly lying to this company and taking $10,000.
Yeah.
Terrible. There's lack of ethics everywhere,
Yeah, people just don't give a shit at a certain point.
I think of it as desperation. It's like you're a desperate mofo. You really are, because you're willing to stoop. They're not stupid. We always tend to think it's like senators.
Desperate or lazy, because you could easily do something else that just would require more effort. You're doing kind of like the easy thing of swindling dumb people out of their money, I guess. I don't know. That's a weird thing.
I mean, we all can't be technical experts. So, but there can be a guy who's got a $3 million a year landscaping business. He's very successful. He's taking what 2 Hawaiian vacations every year with his whole family. He's a successful person. He does not understand the technical side of the business. He owns a chain of plumbing stores or whatever. And he's going to rely on those third-party companies. And if they're a bunch of just unethical business people,
what we should do, Gooey? We should start a company that curates those other companies. And so when a company needs a company to do that sort of stuff, they'll come to us and we'll be like, nah, that one's bullshit, but this one's good. So go with that one. And then they'll pay us, and then they'll be satisfied.
I like the pay us part.
Right? We'll sniff out the bullshit for you.
Well, help me sell 1 million books, and then I'll have some investment capital to think about opportunities.
That's right. Did we mention you can get his book on Amazon? And if you go through Amazon on the thing, on the Hotbox site, then we'll get 8 cents of that. So support that shit.
Yeah, and $5, isn't that I'm not in a legal state, but if I were to go,
that's like a pre-roll, Gooey. That's like a cheap, shitty pre-roll. You're better off with this book, I'll tell you.
That's what I was thinking, a pre-roll. So thanks for confirming that.
That's right. Did you see this? Chase Bank closing down some marijuana accounts. Speaking of, not as probably hurtful to a business as maybe losing your Instagram account. You lose your bank account, it's like, I had money in there, hopefully. But as we know, if you're in the weed biz, you're getting paid cash, you're not banking. So
right. Well, the irony of this case was it involved Green Flower Media out of California. Yeah. And they
don't even sell weed. They're just a marketing company, right?
Well, no, they're a media company.
Yeah. They're content
publishing. Think of it as a 21st century publishing.
Yeah, they're
company.
content creators. So
that is correct. They create their own content, and there's a big advocacy side to their business, and giving back to the community and the culture. But so they don't grow. They don't handle cannabis in any way, shape, or form. Be it seeds or plants or extraction or processing or retail outlets. Just none of that. All they deal with is content. Obviously, we've mentioned them before because they did the Cannabis Health Summit at the end of January.
That was last episode. Yeah.
Yeah, and basically what happened was they only had the account for like 4 days or something, and they
terminated. Why? Due to reputational risk. The fuck does that mean?
Well, it means, I mean, here's how I understand it. Okay, now I'm not an expert at this, so I understand that if they want to be risky, and I don't think banks are into that whole kind of Vegas risk thing. That's probably why they don't own a lot of casinos and such, and they do it the way they do it. But if they want to be risky, they can go ahead and deal with businesses in the cannabis industry, but they risk losing their FDIC insurance. Okay. And they don't want to do that, because then, if there's a robbery or just, whatever happens when that insurance would kick in, they don't have the sugar daddy of the federal government behind them to replace those funds, and they'd have to come up with them themselves, severely hitting their bottom line. But just because the whole thing is regulated by the feds, most of them perceive that they could suffer some repercussions from the federal government for dealing with these businesses. I have a friend here in Texas who feels very strongly that especially the mid-size and smaller banks really, really want the business of the cannabis industry.
I bet.
But they're just afraid. They're like, yeah, but the federal government will spank us, so we can't do it.
So then you should just get the tech industry to step in and be like, yo, we will FDIC insure you for whatever. They have the money. Problem solved.
Yeah, right. The
You're
tech
welcome.
industry got all the money, so yeah, they
just
could do
replace
that.
it. Like, oh, that's fine. We don't actually need that anymore. Thanks. Like,
We
what
don't
would
need
they
the
do?
government as the sugar daddy.
Yeah, what would they do? If I was in the tech industry like that, I would definitely do that.
Well, what's sad about it is, you have companies like Green Flower who are really trying to get the good word out. They really are trying to do more than make money.
Well, and they accepted their account. Like, they reviewed everything and they were like, yeah, that's fine. And then they reviewed it further after they were doing business and decided it wasn't all of a sudden, or what? That seems really shitty.
You know what? My little pet theory is that it hit the desk. Word, hey, the age of social media, right? The speed of the internet. And it hit the desk of a conservative vice president, just somebody who had the authority to
Just
pull the
randomly?
account.
Like,
And I
just
think it just pissed them off, where they're like, nope, we're not. We're for a variety of both personal and professional reasons, none of which are good.
yeah, that's dicks.
Yeah, well, it just, again, the overarching issue here is, this cash only business, but back to the point that Green Flower Media is not a cash only business. You can swipe your Visa, so to speak, with Green Flower Media. Okay, it's not like you're walking into a dispensary in Denver or Seattle. They're not dealing with the plant.
What they also say too is that it's ironic that this bank, with all of the fines it has paid for wrongdoing, would accuse these people of giving them a bad reputation. It should actually kind of be the other way around.
Yeah, well, fortunately, Green Flower is getting quite a bit of attention from this. Forbes magazine wrote it up.
Good.
And I've seen it in some other major national publications. And I think it's really great. And I think the reason it's trending is because we hear about dispensaries, retail outlets, cultivation facilities, co-ops, whatever, in various states that get hassled by the DEA and the Justice Department all the time. Whether it's SWAT team style or not, or attorneys showing up at the door. And this is just a really interesting case. I don't know that this is the first time it's happened.
No, I'm sure it's not.
Something tells me, cannot be that a company that's just dealing with the topic
Yeah.
So really, Green Flower is saying that it's an issue of First Amendment rights, where they're saying, oh, you can't even talk about cannabis.
Yeah, but meanwhile, they've paid 153 million for misleading CDO investments, another 228 million for anti-competitive conduct and municipal bonds, another 5.29 billion for foreclosure abuses and robo-signing.
Wow.
So, yeah, Chase, you can kind of, All right, well, Gooey, I got to get out of here, so we're going to wrap this up, but it's been a pleasure.
It's always educational, my friend.
We try, right?
We do. We learn something and we
That's
share
true.
it with the listeners.
That's right. Definitely check us out online, hotboxpodcast.com. You can find Gooey stuff at gooeyromansky.com, I think. Yeah.
Yep, and over on Waxy.
Yeah.
And
Stuff stoners like. Yeah. Oh, check this out. I want to show this real quick because I posted kind of a teaser earlier on Instagram on at the Jam Hole. That's my Instagram of what this is, this little box, right? So I want to actually show you guys real quick while we have the cameras on what's in this thing.
Sexy looking stuff.
This is all gonna, I'll like put it together with a proper review, but here's what it looks like. And I'll put it together here. But instead of using ceramic and titanium like the Vubers, they're using quartz and titanium, which is totally awesome. I'm a big fan of quartz. And so that was the dual coil, which is standard, like Vuber Atlas, all dual coil. This also came with a triple coil. So I'm very excited. I'm reviewing this here, and I'll have a video and article out. But here's what it looks like. Tell me this is not the coolest vape pen you've ever seen. I guess you can't see it because you're on Skype, but you'll be able to see it soon.
I'm on Skype on the iPad and too lazy to go to the laptop. So I will see it soon.
But here's what it looks like for everyone on Hangouts. So there you go. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Supposedly this thing will hold. It'll hold a gram of concentrate. Supposedly, I'm gonna put it through the test.
That's pretty amazing. That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, you gotta see the thing. It's a little bigger than a Vuber Atlas, but it's cool looking. It's all spacey.
There's a lot of cool innovation right now. I'm really excited about the products and services that we're going to see in the next 3 to 5 years.
It's like reading my mind when I was using, and I still like the Vuber Atlas ones. So ceramic and titanium is way better than the copper. No, it's not copper. I'm sure it's titanium, but they wrap it in cotton instead of the ceramic or quartz. And I found the ceramic ones. I was like, these are awesome, but it would be better if it was quartz. And now I have this to review, and it is quartz. They're reading my mind, and it's very exciting. So there'll be a full review on that on stuffstonerslike.com. You guys can check that shit out. Got the Dabadoo Bolt, like we were talking about earlier. That review is up also on stuffstonerslike.com. And the G13 weed, that's up. And I got some ChemDog coming up. Wait till you see this stuff. Pre-91 ChemDog, actually branded by our favorite shop. And this stuff, the label says 33%.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's some pretty good weed.
I bet.
But yeah, we'll have review and nice macro pictures as always over on the site. So check it out. And subscribe in iTunes. We're on Stitcher, all that shit. So thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time. Peace out.